roads? Where we're going, we don't need roads.
No. I am your father.
The greatest trick the devil ever pulled was convincing the world he didn't exist.
You're listening to After the Ending, the only film podcast where we tell you what happens after the ending of your favorite films. And now, here are your hosts, Mike Spring and Phil Edwards.
Hello, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of After the Ending. I'm Mike Spring.
And I'm Phil Edwards.
And it is episode 136, and we are back. We took an extra week off last week. We had some scheduling, some technical difficulties, some other things going on, but we are back now today on a holiday in the U.S. As we're recording this. It is Labor Day here in the U.S. For Phil in the U.K., it's Monday.
It's just another day, yeah. It's nighttime, but it's a balmy evening of warm weather and no mosquitoes.
That's nice. That's always nice.
Yeah.
Mosquitoes are the devil, I think. So, but we're back, and hopefully you guys missed us, and we are live. So if you are out there and you're watching live, once we get started, of course, feel free to send your comments our way. You guys know we love to hear from our listeners and our viewers. Then if you're watching after the fact, that's fine too. We hope you'll enjoy what we got coming up. We got some good stuff in this episode. Phil, why don't you tell people what we're talking about in this episode and our next episode if you want, or we can save that for the end, whatever you feel.
In the main feature, we're going to be going after the ending of The Last Dragon, the classic martial arts comedy. And we thought we'd do that because Shang-Chi and the Legend of the Ten Rings, the new Marvel movie, is in cinemas, but we didn't want to talk about that because spoilers and things like that. Also, I've not seen it yet, so can't talk about it. And then we're going to be having a little bit of a chat, as we often do. This time it's going to be about multiverses, and in particular comic book multiverses, because both DC and Marvel have got films coming out which are delving into the multiverse. And for those of you who don't read the comics but do watch comic book things, you will know a bit about this if you're fans of the CW's Arrowverse, because they had a big multiverse crossover and what have you. And then in the post-credit episode, it's going to be our last 5 films we watched and our recommendations.
Yeah, and in the description of this episode, Phil, I decided to call our segment Multiverses and More Multiverses, because I thought that seemed to have kind of a nice ring to it. So hopefully we won't lose too many people when we start talking about multiverses. But I think we'll break it down and make it simple for people. But first, before we do that, we got to go after the ending of 1985's cult classic, if you will, The Last Dragon. So this is one of those movies. I think let me preface it this way. I think by saying that, I'm sure there are some people out there who are like, The Last Dragon, I've never seen that movie. I've never even heard of that movie. But I bet you probably have. It's one of those films that, like, you probably saw it on TV or rented it on video, or if you're like us, the real film buffs, it's probably one you've seen 20 times because it is a cult classic. But if you're one of those people who's like, I never heard of The Last Dragon, maybe do a quick Google search, because I bet you're going to go, wait a minute. That looks kind of familiar, right? It's been around for a long time. Yeah,
it's one of those films which I didn't think I'd seen. And then you mentioned it in an episode ages and ages ago. And then I eventually got down, sat and watched it. And I realized I'd seen bits and pieces of it through the years and trailers for it and clips on YouTube and what have you. But I sat down and watched it, really enjoyed it. It's cheesy as all hell, especially because it's from the 80s. But it's a lot of fun. And also after watching it, I realized it's been referenced in lots of other things. But it's fun, but it's 1985, so
it's very 1985. Yeah,
very 1985. But it is good fun.
I never watched this movie in its entirety growing up. It's not one of the ones that I really watched much as a kid. I think I saw bits and pieces of it. I never saw it until I was an adult. And I think, or maybe as like a teenager, I think one of my best friends was like a huge fan of the movie growing up. And I think when we were probably like in our early 20s, he was like, "You've never seen The Last Dragon?" And I was like, "No." And he's like, "We got to watch it." And so we sat down, and I think a bunch of friends got together and we watched it and just had a blast with it. And I watched it every couple of years, and I just watched it again not that long ago. And I'm constantly amazed at how well it holds up. And by how well it holds up, I don't mean that like it holds up well, if that makes sense. Yeah. In that, like, it is cheesy. It's very 80s, the fashion, the music, the special effects, everything. But every time I watch it, I think this is going to be the time where I'm going to go, oh, this movie is so bad. It's kind of painful. Why do I like this movie? But I don't. It's really fun and energetic and just silly and awesome. And every time I watch it, I get a big smile on my face, and that never changes. So
I think you explained it's one of those films where it's perfect, where it's happened with lots of different movies as well, where a friend goes, "Hey, have you seen this film?" And you go, "No," and you put it on. Usually, especially when you're old enough to, when you've got a beer or two, and you go, "What is this?" And it starts off, and you get that sinking feeling. You go, "Oh no, this is going to be bad. They really like it, though. What do I do?" But then you're suddenly going, "Oh no, this is actually really good. Oh, that's funny. This is cheesy. What am I doing? Oh no, this is brilliant. Yay!" Yeah. You film it, but it's this. I like those moments when you discover a new old film. Like that. Yeah.
So if you've never seen The Last Dragon, I highly recommend it. But just go into it knowing what you're getting. You kind of have to. You can't watch it as like a serious movie. You have to watch it as just like, I'm going to have fun with this, and it's going to be ridiculous, and that's okay. And if you go into that mindset, I think you'll really enjoy it. But if you have seen it and you know what it's all about, then hopefully you're excited to hear what we've come up with for our endings.
Yeah, and if you have seen it as well, if you're watching this live on Facebook, Facebook Live, I'll repeat that again. If you can comment on this video now and let us know what you think about The Last Dragon. Have you seen it? Haven't you? What do you like about it? But we're now going to go fully glow up and
that's right.
Go after the ending of it.
All right. Well, let me give the quick synopsis, Phil, for people who need a refresher on it, because I did a little bit, even though I'd seen it not that long ago. The Last Dragon from 1985, starring two actors with only one name each, Timok and Vanity. A lot of you might remember Vanity from the 80s. Probably nobody remembers Timok unless you're a fan of this movie.
We did meet him. We met him. Yeah.
That's right. A couple of years back, Phil and I got to meet Timok. I took my picture with him. If I can find it, we'll post it on the socials. He was a very nice guy and very energetic.
Really nice guy.
Yeah. So the basic story is there's a martial artist named Leroy Green, also known as Bruce Leroy. A lot of Bruce Lee influences on this film. He's reached the final level of martial arts enlightenment, known as the Last Dragon, which means he has the power to unleash the glow. But there's a bad guy named Show Nuff, which should tell you something about the kind of movie we're watching here, because it's silly. And he wants to stop Leroy, and so he has his gang wreak all kinds of havoc all over the place. Leroy gets involved with a TV personality named Laura Charles. She's like a VJ from back in the MTV days. He saves her, then he loses her, then he saves her again, and then a whole lot of fighting happens. And then basically Leroy discovers he had the glow inside him all along, and he literally glows. It's awesome. And he finally beats Show Nuff. What's that?
There's lots of this as well. Just before the big fight, he's getting ready and glowing.
Oh, yeah.
I love that stuff.
Absolutely. He beats Show Nuff in the big showdown, and he gets the girl in the end. That pretty much cover it, Phil?
Pretty much. But it's one of those late-night movie experiences you should try out.
Yeah, much better, much later at night. Like, the later you watch it, the better the movie is, I think. So, all right. Do you want to start? You want to go first? Or you want me to go first?
Well, you did the intro. I'll go first, and then we'll come back to you.
Sounds good. Take it away.
Okay, well, after the events of the film, Show Nuff is arrested and spends his time in prison, where we see him training and counting the days until his release. Dun, dun, dun. But meanwhile, Leroy Green, now a true master of the martial arts, he finds peace and realizes that he should spread the word, the message of what he has learned. So he opens up a dojo and begins teaching lessons to all those who want the lessons. He also makes sure he includes free spaces for children in the neighborhood who do not have enough money to pay for lessons, because he's a nice guy.
Yeah.
He also gets somewhere with Laura and the relationship builds. But every now and again, somebody pesters Leroy to show off the glow, but he always states a true master would not need to use the glow. And so he keeps it down low and really he never really uses the glow again. Well, not that much. But Laura ends up beginning a news career. After an interview she gave after the fight in the Seventh Heaven nightclub at the end of the film, it sort of goes viral before things could go viral, but it was all over the place, and I sort of forgot the whole terminology because old. But years pass, and eventually Show Nuff is released from prison. Dun, dun, dun. Leroy hears the news, and people in the neighborhood tell him to be ready for a rematch because Show Nuff is bound to want revenge. Leroy simply nods and brews some tea. Laura worries for him, but trusts his instincts. Show Nuff's former gang members wait outside Leroy's dojo, and the clock ticks onwards. And then Show Nuff is there. He walks down the street, nodding at those he recognizes, and those people who are scared of Show Nuff are still scared of him. But watching through the windows, the spectators see Show Nuff approach, and Leroy nods and smiles at Show Nuff and lets him into the dojo. The door closes, and the people outside push through so they can look through the window, and they prepare to watch what promises to be an epic battle. But Shonuff just simply bows to Leroy and then speaks. "I'm sorry for what I did," says Shonuff. "Could you teach me and help me find peace?" Leroy smiles, nods his head, and says, "Let's begin."
Awesome.
And that's my ending.
I like it. I like it. Shonuff has matured and grown in his time in prison.
Yes.
Excellent.
Yes.
Interesting. I went a very different direction, but there was one sort of similarity in yours to mine that I think is kind of interesting because it's sort of the bigger part of mine. So it'll be fun to see how we sort of had a little similarity.
Okay. Yeah. Hit me with it.
I tried to go with something kind of serious, and I really couldn't come up with anything. I was drawing a blank. So mine's a little.
I was going to go. I was trying to go. I was thinking about going silly, and then I thought I can't be as silly as the film. So
That's true. That's a good point. Mine is I don't know if it's as silly as the film, but it's definitely not as serious as it could be. But here we go. So with the dispatching of Shonuff, things settle down in the city. Leroy and Laura begin dating, and one day while she's on air, Leroy stops by the studio to meet her for lunch. While she's filming live, one of the new employees at the studio recognizes Leroy as the man who brought down Shonuff, and it turns out he's a former disciple of Shonuff's who's still loyal to the evil Shogun. So he attacked Leroy. They have a huge fight that bursts into the TV studio, and they end up fighting on the television stage that Laura has now quickly evacuated. But the fight is going out live on national television. Now, Leroy doesn't need the glow to beat this lowly peon, but his martial arts wizardry wows the nation at home. Almost instantly, the switchboards light up, and people go crazy for this kind of new, like, raw, unscripted television. So Laura gets an idea. Goes on TV the next day and asks people to send in any footage they might have of anything cool or crazy happening, like martial arts fights breaking out, or men being hit in the testicles with baseball bats, things like that. Before they know it, Laura and Leroy have basically invented reality television. Their new show, their new show called America's Funkiest Home Videos becomes a massive ratings hit. Stays on the air for like the next several decades, and Leroy and Laura live a life of luxury on the profits they make from it. And that is my after the ending.
Excellent. Yes, that fits in with the aesthetic. Yeah.
But see, you mentioned how they went viral before going viral. The whole idea of mine. So I kind of like that little tie-in there.
Excellent. Yeah, very good. Very good. I like it.
Thank you. All right, so there you go. So there's a couple of different endings for 1985's The Last Dragon. Like we said, it's an experience. It's a film you kind of have to see. Just go into it knowing what you're going to get out of it, and I think you can enjoy it quite a bit. And hopefully you enjoyed our endings. So let us know either in the comments or on the various platforms you watch the show or listen to the show what you thought and what you might think might happen after the ending.
Yes. We always love to hear from you. So comment away, whether you're watching it live or after the fact.
Excellent. All right. Well, that's going to wrap up our after the ending section of the episode. So, Phil, why don't you cue us off here a little bit? Because we're talking about multiverses, right? Why don't you
well, for those of you who do like the superhero films and TV shows now on Disney Plus in particular, I've already mentioned the CW had a multiverse, but Loki recently got the multiverse kickstarted in a big way. At the end of that, we saw the sacred timeline splintered and lots of various things going all different ways, which means the multiverse in Marvel is in full effect. We know this also because Doctor Strange 2 is called Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness. Forgot that. And also Spider-Man Far From Home is also dealing with the multiverse. And it's not really a spoiler because the trailer's been out for a while now, but it involves Alfred Molina's Dr. Octopus and Willem Dafoe's Green Goblin from the Tobey Maguire Spider-Man movies are coming into the Tom Holland Spider-Man universe, the MCU. So it's basically different universes, different versions. It's an excuse for different versions of the characters we know, like, and love or dislike, all coming in and being a big melting pot. And on DC and Warner Brothers, they've got the Flash movie, which is riffing on the Flashpoint storyline, which means we're going to be seeing Ben Affleck's Batman's going to be in it, but also Michael Keaton's back as Batman, and a new Supergirl is going to be within that, and possibly lots of other bits and pieces. There's lots of other rumors and things like that, but we just thought we'd discuss the multiverse, in particular the comic book multiverses, because they've been around for a long, long time, because I think DC had one back. Well, they had the rumblings of one, or the beginnings in a rough way, back in the 40s. So it's been around a long time.
Mm-hmm.
But we thought it was a good point now to bring it up because it's going to be hitting cinemas in a big way.
And also maybe talking about like why are both Marvel and DC delving into the multiverses at the same time, right? Is that a good thing or a bad thing? That type of stuff. So, well, do you have any initial thoughts, Phil? What's your kind of broad takeaway?
I always quite like a multiverse. Usually in passing, I like it when it's a good way of finding. Well, I suppose the What If cartoon as well on Disney Plus, as well as dealing with multiverses as well, because it gives the creators and writers a chance to show basically what if this person went bad, what if it was a different person, or what if the spider bit somebody else, things like that. I always love those flights of fantasy. It's a bit like what we do with After the Ending, but even that's a bit more stylized. But me and Mike create multiverses every single episode with our two versions. But I always like that. It's taking something we know and like, and then just giving it a twist and thinking about, but what would happen if this did happen, or they had a difference. If it wasn't Martha and John, Martha and Thomas Wayne who got killed in the alleyway, things like that. I really like those flights of fancy. What about you?
I mean, I feel the same way. I really like the multiverse stories. They're endless, right? You can do them. They've done a million of them. What if like you said, what if Superman landed in Russia? What if somebody else got bitten by the radioactive spider? All these types of things, and I think they're a lot of fun. I think for me, what I find, I don't know if I want to say questionable, but interesting is like, if you look at the films that have been made so far, they've really only scratched the surface of available storylines from the comics, right? It's like they're not really hurting for comic storylines yet. So the idea that now Marvel's really doubling down on the multiverses, between Loki, What If, the Spider-Man, Doctor Strange, like they're really going all in on this concept, and that's I think it's gonna be really cool and really fun. But it does sort of seem like, boy, are you already out of story ideas? I mean, there's a million comics to choose from. Why do we have to start going with all these what ifs all of a sudden before we even get to the real things? It's like, well, what if this happened? I'm like, well, I don't know. Did that happen? Like, I haven't seen that yet. So that's my only kind of thought was like, boy, they sort of jumped into that, I guess, relatively early. My
thinking for the two, both Marvel and DC, I think there's different reasons why they're doing it cinematically. I think DC are doing it because of the mess they've got themselves in, and also the money. Both sides going to be money, but the DC, I think, and Warner Brothers, it's the mess they've made with like the Snyderverse and all this stuff, and it was all going to be linked originally, but it just became a mess. And then we had the Joker movie, which was connected or wasn't connected. And I think as it's gone on, they've just gone, oh, well, DC has the multiverse, so let's do that, because then we can just make these standalone films or what have you, and it doesn't matter if there's no connecting tissue between them all. And then somewhere down the line, we can maybe bring them all together, multiverse. And I think Marvel are doing it also, well, because Marvel plan things out a little bit better, well, a lot better than lots of other things. But they might be doing a multiverse for the story aspect, but maybe also so they can not recast, but basically recast by bringing different versions of established characters we've already got, but doing it in a way which fits in with the universe they've set up.
Right.
So maybe because I know we're going to have different versions, like Ironheart. She's not Iron Man, she's not a Tony Stark, but that could be one way. But we might see. I'm personally hoping we get to see at some point just a glimpse of Tom Cruise as Tony Stark, because that was always going to be one of the casting things like that. But I think Marvel, it's a casting reason somewhere down the line maybe for characters, and DC it's just to go, let's try and make sense of this multiverse.
Here's a real quick aside though for viewers and listeners, a fun drinking game. Take a shot every time we say the word multiverse. Just kidding, don't do that, you'll die.
Yes.
But I think that's a good point, Phil. And I think DC especially, from what now, they're pretty tight-lipped about a lot of the stuff, but from the rumblings that I've heard, I do feel like they are sort of using this Flashpoint movie with the multiverses to sort of, like you said, sort of reset the DC universe a little bit, to sort of clean up their own mess that they've sort of created already, where they have, you know, you've got Jared Leto's Joker, and then you've got all these other we've had the Heath Ledger Joker, and it's like, which movies take, Batman with Christian Bale and Batman in the Snyderverse, and all. It's like, where does it all begin, right? So I think Flashpoint, from what I've heard, they may be using to sort of streamline the universe and reset sort of their moving forward point. So that I think is interesting. And for those of you who aren't familiar with the comics, Flashpoint is actually a really great story where the Flash goes back in time to try to prevent the murder of his mother. But of course, in doing so, there's like a butterfly effect, and he changes all of the future. And so all these heroes turn out differently. And like Thomas Wayne is still alive, and he's Batman instead of Bruce Wayne, and all this stuff. And it was a really great comic story. And so I'm excited to see what they do with it in the film. I mean, it's DC, so I'm a little tempered in my enthusiasm, but I'm hopeful that they'll do a good job with it. But I do think that they are using it, like you said, as sort of to kind of just like say, all right, this from now on, everything, however this movie ends, is going to kind of be the moving forward point. We're going to branch out from there, and this will be the sort of status quo for all of these heroes, Whereas with Marvel, I think it is more of a, they're going to use it to just as a fun diversion and be like, yeah, let's put Peter Parker in a couple different multiverse worlds. Why not? It'll be cool.
Yeah. Because I think it's maybe the multiverse as well. In Marvel, they're going to stick with characters who are more suited for it, like Doctor Strange.
Right.
And we've already had Spider-Man into the Spider-Verse anyway. So that was another setup for a multiverse.
Yeah. Marvel really is like digging in on this multiverse concept. I didn't think about that, but you're right. Spider-Man into the Spider-Verse is a multiverse movie, right? So they're really, I wonder if they're doing it so much to just make sure that everybody sort of gets the concept of multiverses, so that anytime they want to make a movie in the future, if it doesn't fit in with continuity exactly, or if they want to even just be like, yeah, remember those other X-Men movies? Multiverse.
It could be, and I think, again, mentioning the X-Men, it could be a way of Marvel bringing in the X-Men.
Right.
Because maybe not, it could explain that the films that we've already had, it could also explain that because they've been part of a multiverse, but then we could maybe have some multiverse shenanigans, bring in yet another alternate version. It also means somewhere down the line, even though he keeps saying he never will, we could always get Hugh Jackman back as an old man Logan, but not the Logan from the Logan film, but a different one. And also a reason of bringing in Ryan Reynolds as Deadpool into the MCU proper as well, I think. Right.
It's interesting because so for example, the Spider-Man No Way Home trailer, which is phenomenal, and I love the trailer. They show Dr. Octopus from the Tobey Maguire films. They hint at the Green Goblin with the Green Goblin bomb. We don't see the Green Goblin, but it's it's hinted at. But here's the thing. Marvel never shows you all their best stuff in the trailer, right?
Yeah. That's
so
true.
That makes me go well, if they're showing that stuff in the trailer, what's the stuff we're not seeing yet? So I have to wonder if in Spider-Man or Doctor Strange, we're going to get some X-Men cameos or Fantastic Four cameos, something like that out of nowhere that everyone's just going to completely lose their minds over. It wouldn't surprise me at all, because what better way to sort of introduce these characters, soft introduce them, than with multiverse type of story,
Well, I wouldn't be surprised if we see in either the Spider-Man film or Doctor Strange, whether we see Chris Evans back as Captain America and Chris Hemsworth as Thor with different versions. I think we'll see Chris Evans as Captain Hydra, whatever he was called in the comic book, where it turned out he was a Hydra agent. And I also think the What If cartoon, I think that's building up to, I think the last episode, the last two, are going to be some of the heroes we've seen introduced in each episode. I think the Watch is going to get them together for a multiverse threat. That's what I think. So we could also see in one of those films Haley Atwell as Captain Carter.
Right.
I could easily see that happening.
Yeah.
But DC. I am looking forward to seeing Michael Keaton as Batman again.
That's the thing I'm the most excited about the Flashpoint movie, is him showing up as the old grizzled Batman. Just because just cool, right? Because he was the first Batman. But B, Michael Keaton is one of my favorite actors. He's so good in everything, and I just love the idea of him coming back to Batman, and because he's so great now as an actor, I think he'll really just give the part something just incredible. And I just love the fact that he's not too good to come back to his his big star making. He was a successful comedic actor before Batman, but Batman really turned him into a household name. So I like the fact that he's not one of these actors who's no, I'm older and I'm not going to dress up as Batman anymore. anymore. Like he's like, yeah, it's I'm sure he's not doing it for a whole new series of films necessarily, but for a one shot in this really cool idea of like different Batmans from different universes, different time zones, whatever. Like, good for him. I think that's awesome that he's showing back up to kind of do his thing.
I think it's going to be fun, and to be honest, I think that's going to be the main draw for many people for the Flash movie.
Sure, yeah. Yeah, I mean, yeah, because who's going to see Michael Keaton as Batman again and not be like, holy crap, that takes me back to my childhood or my teenage years or whatever, and
it'd be nice as well. I'd love to see. I can't see it happening now, but it'd be great to see Wesley Snipes back as Blade. Just as
that would be cool.
But I can't see that happening after what happened with Blade 3. But
I don't know. I mean, because Blade 3 didn't do that well, you mean?
Well, no, just because I think there was lots of friction between Wesley Snipes and the director and things like that. But different directors, and also if you throw enough money at things.
Let's be honest. Wesley Snipes' career these days. I'm not being rude. I like Wesley Snipes quite a bit, but he has sort of become one of those like movie actors who shows up mostly in B movies nowadays, as opposed to like being a leading man or anything like that anymore. So the chance to star in a Marvel movie and become part of the MCU official, I think he might jump at that, no matter how bad the blood was 20 years ago. But, I think now he'd be like, sure thing, sign me up. He jumped in on Expendables when they brought him into that franchise. So.
Definitely. But there's also other things like the Captain Britain in the comic books. There was the Captain Britain Corps, which was the multiverse of the different Captain Britons would meet up and have these kind of things. It often meant in lots of them being massacred by the villain of the whatever comic storyline going on. But it was always good to see. It's there's lots of potential. I do like a good multiverse, and it's although there was one thing in the comics, DC, they had so many problems with the multiverse in the comic books that it's. So many different stories all over the place. They didn't know what was going on. They basically decided to just wipe out and condense to like one universe, like the Sacred Timeline did in the Marvel TV series. But they had the Crisis on Infinite Earths, which saw various characters get killed. So fans loved and hated it in equal measure. It was a good storyline, and it's done pretty well. And the CW did riff on that in one of their big crossovers, but. That's what happens though if the multiverse gets out of control. You need to think a bit.
A few months back, when at the end of their Death Metal miniseries, they basically reversed all of that and said, "Well, now everything's valid. All the universes are valid. Every story is a real story and a fake story at the same time, and now it doesn't matter. So we can have 2 Wonder Womans and we have like 4 Batmans and all this stuff. That's what's happening in the DC comics now. They just decided everything was canon. So."
Yeah, until they decide to go back again.
Yeah, right. Until they have another Crisis on Infinite Earths, Crisis on even more Infinite Earths, even though you can't have more than infinite. But, that's
crikey, not another Crisis.
Yeah, exactly. Crisis on Infinite Earths 2, Electric Boogaloo. I think that's where we're headed, maybe. But, yeah, so... All right, well, there you go. So some good multiverse talk. I hope nobody was actually doing our multiverse drinking game because that sounds dangerous. But should be interesting at the very least to see where all this stuff goes.
Yeah, let us know what characters you'd like to see in a multiverse or Elseworld scenario. Which actors you'd love to see show up in a Marvel or DC film as one of these superheroes or villains, ones we've seen before, or could be new ones. Or it'd be good to see because Tom Hiddleston, he auditioned to play Thor originally.
Right.
It'd be good if he just popped in as an actual Thor, Chris Hemsworth as Loki. That'd be a cool little thing.
Yeah.
But there's lots of different scenarios. Just let us know yours. Be as imaginative as you want, and if it shows up, kudos to you.
That's right. All right, very good. So I think that's going to wrap us up then for today. But if you are watching live, don't worry. We'll be back in just a few minutes. We're going to end this episode and come back with a brand new one. And if you are listening or watching after the fact, then we'll have another episode for you next week. So stay tuned in all your various forms and formats. So we'll be back real soon. But for now, that's going to finish us up. So we'll just say thank you very much for listening. I'm Mike Spring.
And I'm Phil Edwards.
And we'll see you next week.
After the ending.